Before we get started today, I just wanted to say that I am a contributor for the Warphammer Chaos Tactica page, so if you want to see some more Chaos-related content, go ahead and check us out over at our website or over at our main YouTube channel. Alright, so today we're actually going to be talking about the most requested profile from the upcoming codex. It seems everyone really does enjoy themselves some big, meaty boys. So the Great Unclean One was the definite standout. I also wanted to say that a lot of these rules have been made available through the Discord communities, thanks to a good friend of mine, Trout. And I just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he has been a great resource as well as I've been compiling a lot of the information I had to do some of these codex leaks. So let's take a look at the profile here. So there's a lot that stayed the same, but also a lot that's changed. So in terms of our weapon skill, ballistic skill, movement, and strength, none of that has changed. Our movement and our strength characteristic are still what degrades as we take damage. However, our toughness characteristic has increased by 1 to toughness 8, and our wound characteristic has jumped all the way up to 22 wounds. We have 7 attacks now, which is an improvement from our previous 5, and our save characteristic is a 4+ against shooting attacks and a 5+ in melee. We did trade our 5-up Feel No Pain for a disgustingly resilient -1 damage. However, the Great Unclean One is still a double caster, so it can cast 2 spells, and there are some notable survivability buffs available on the Psychic tree. One is the Miasma, which is just the -1 to hit, which you can still use, and the other one is a 5-up Feel No Pain, which you can cast either on your Great Unclean One or on another squad, like some Beasts of Nurgle or something. And those 2 survivability boosts can go a long way in helping take a stock standard Great Unclean One and really amping up his survivability. With those 2 traits on him, he can survive something like 60 las cannon shots, if they were shot by like regular Space Marines without rerolls. Now that said, there are other ways in the codex to bring the survivability even higher if you want to. Those will be through your warlord traits and relics. All of that said, though, as he stands, he is going to be pretty survivable for his points, and he competes very well in a point-for-point basis with something like a Chaos Knight. The next thing I wanted to discuss with the Great Unclean One are just some of his weapon options that he has available. The first one is going to be the Plague Flail, which still has the same 7-inch range it did before, but it's moved to Assault 3 plus D3 instead of just Assault 3, which it was before. Its strength is still user, so it's usually going to be swinging at strength 7 with an AP -3 and a damage of 2. It doesn't have the wounds spillover trait anymore, but it's still pretty nice if you want to bring more of a shooting option. On the note of shooting options, the Great Unclean One now comes standard with Vomit, so it has the horrific Vomit shooting attack, which is a 12-inch range, Assault D6, auto-hitting, Strength 5, AP -2, Damage 1, Flamer equivalent, which is a pretty decent little bit of shooting to add on top of there. In terms of melee options, there is 3. There is the Bile Blade, which is more of the support option that he wields in his offhand. If you use that one, it's only strength 7, it's only AP -3, it's only damage 2. I shouldn't say only AP -3, that's pretty relevant, but the low damage is kind of where it gets you. So the Bile Blade's main purpose is that it's going to give you reroll wounds, which can be quite nice into, some 2-wound Marines. And the other thing it does is it allows you to give your Great Unclean One a mortal wound in the Psychic phase, and if you do, you give him +1 to cast. So it can be pretty nice if you have your key powers on him. This next weapon is the key weapon for if you want to use your Great Unclean One as somewhat of a beat stick unit to send at their big stuff, and it's going to be his Bile Sword. So it's the big choppy weapon. And it has two options. You can either strike with it or you can sweep with it. If you strike with it, he'll swing at strength 8, AP -3, and a damage of D6. It has this rule where if you roll a 6 to hit, it automatically wounds as well. So that's pretty relevant into like light or medium armor vehicles. He also has a sweep profile that he can use with that same weapon, which is going to be strength user, AP -3, damage of 1, which will be quite nice if you do manage to get bogged down in a horde. If you're using the sweep plus your horrific vomit plus something like a plague flail, you can really chip away at units that would otherwise tie him down in combat. The last thing he has is the Doomsday Bell. And the Doomsday Bell is, got kind of whatever melee stats, but its main purpose is if he has the Doomsday Bell each command phase, he has this aura around him where injured Plaguebearer units restore D3 models. Importantly, because that does trigger in the command phase, it's done before objective scoring for that round. So you can, for instance, maybe bring back 3 models on a Plaguebearer unit and have them split forward to go reclaim an objective that you might have lost during your opponent's turn, and then score the points on it. So looking at all of the options here, there's some really good utility options, there's some really good combat options, and the book seems to want you to kind of consider whether you want your Great Unclean One as more of a melee threat or beat stick, or if you want to build him more as a utility or centerpiece for your Plaguebearer army. So that about does it for the Great Unclean One for now. There are some really cool relics and warlord traits that you can put on all of the greater demons for each of the factions. They each have their own tables they can pick from, which is really cool, and it allows you to theme your Great Unclean One how you want them. And I think the fact that there are now a couple of different ways to play it and have it still be effective, and you're not just priced into having to build just defensively like you are right now, is pretty nice. It also means you can keep the unit relatively cheap, as opposed to having to invest a bunch of CP in it just to keep it around. So that's the Great Unclean One. What do you think? Leave a comment in the section down below. I'll try to respond to what I can. And what would you like to see next? I hope you have a good rest of your day.